Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers. I thank everybody that's involved with this process because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers.
Experience is not about the publisher, it is about us, the authors.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Russell Rucker. I'm the author of Textualism and Originalism in Our Constitutional Republic. There's a poster above my head depicting that. And you just saw a small 30-second commercial for my second book, Our Founders and Their Words and Why They Matter. My books primarily are about the Constitution and our founding period. And yesterday we were going through the Second Amendment. I did have a final question about the revolver I was showing. That's a black powder gun. Robert had asked me specifically about it, but I don't really know the answer to your question, Robert, because I'm not that well versed in firearms. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. I picked it up basically to show, so I could show people the difference between a regular gun and a black powder gun when I talk about the Second Amendment. And today we're going to get into the First Amendment. We're going to continue with our Bill of Rights. So we're going to go back up to the First Amendment. And so I'll read it for you here. And the First Amendment says, Congress shall pass no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free practice thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And I'm going to split this into a couple of sections here. And let's first start about the establishment of religion. And so the whole idea here is that Congress cannot declare say a state religion that's say we're all going to be Catholic, we're all going to be Lutheran, or what have you, whatever denomination you want to use. So they can't do that. But they also can't interfere with a free practice of religion. But it says Congress. It doesn't really prohibit the states. See, at the time of our founding, the different states were different. Some were maybe Dutch, some would be a more Lutheran congregational thing. So each state was a little different. This is a religious country. There's no doubt about that. in the early to 1700s, you had the Great Awakening, which was a big religious revival, and it kind of went through the denominations, and it was just a different way of preaching. And there were a lot of famous preachers from that period. But once you get past that, we get to the period of time where, and this is what I want to really point out to you is, because a lot of people try to tell us it wasn't a religious country. But let's talk about the Liberty Bell for a moment, because the Liberty Bell was ordered in 1754. And it's stamped with a religious inscription from Leviticus 25:10. And it says, proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. Okay. And they had ordered that this be printed on there, along right below, by order of the assembly of the Providence for the State House in Philadelphia, which is the original wording of Philadelphia. So it shows you the importance there. The Speaker of the House of Pennsylvania ordered this bell for a state house. So it's like your capital. And there would be no reason to do that if we weren't of a religious country. This bell was ordered from Lester and Puck, which later became the White Bell Foundry. And it was 2,000 pounds. And it was shipped. And when they rang it, it cracked. And that's when Pass and Stowe agreed to recast it. And they put tin and other things into that, thinking it didn't sound real good. Now, I have a Liberty Bell up here that's made from that foundry. It's a 1/5 replica. And I'll be ringing that a little later just for the fun of it. But I just want you to understand that's that was the whole purpose of the Liberty Bell. The last time it was rung, my understanding, was for Washington's funeral some years later. And then it was decided that the crack because Pass and Stowe fixed the crack, but then it re-cracked. And then they put a kind of a round stopper up the middle of the crack to stop it from cracking anymore. But the last time it was rung, it cracked so much they figured it was unsafe. They even ordered a second one at one point. But the other thing I want to mention is the Thanksgiving Proclamation by Washington, where it says it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God. And this is the language that was used. I just say this to show you how religious a country this really, really was, especially back in the day. And if you remember, our founding fathers came here to escape religious persecution. Well, not really our founding fathers, but the Pilgrims came over. That was the purpose of coming here to begin with, at some extent anyway, get away from religious persecution so they could worship God the way they wanted. Jefferson brings up this whole idea about separation of church and state. Now, separation of church and state was in a letter that Jefferson wrote to a Baptist minister. And it's kind of an interesting way of looking at it, but I don't think it's exactly accurate, because you could still practice religion. In fact, there's many times in government meetings that we've had prayer. Benjamin Franklin asked for prayer during the Constitutional Convention, hoping to get past the bypass they were in. And he even mentions in that speech about how they did this during the Declaration of Independence. So I think it's quite plain that there's not really a true separation. What there is a restriction against giving us a state religion and interfering in a church, synagogue, or any other house of worship. You have a right to do that. So, moving on to the next section here of freedom of speech. So it goes on from the religion and it says, or abridging the freedom of speech. These freedoms are really instrumental. And why do we have freedom of speech? Well, it used to be you would gather under a tree, like a liberty tree. Things would be read to you because there were great masses that didn't know how to read. So newspapers were read to the colonists, and that's how they got their news. Okay, so there's a big importance on free speech. And free speech isn't for what you want to hear necessarily. Sometimes free speech guarantees what's completely repulsive to listen to. But we have to allow speech, even speech, that could be considered disgusting or something you just don't want to hear, because that's the only way for everybody to have a place in the public square. Now, over the past, I don't know, 20, 30 years or so, they've tried to, some colleges have tried to establish free speech zones. Well, that doesn't really work either, because you're stuck in some place where no one's even going to hear you talking. And you have to be given a chance to discuss things the way you want. Okay, then we move on to the freedom of the press. And that's kind of the same thing. It's printed word. I did bring some things downstairs, some books. This is The Federalist. This was a collection of newspaper articles arguing for the defense of the Constitution, arguing for the ratification. I mean, there are a number of our founders, that wrote a lot of this stuff, like John Jay and Madison and Hamilton writing. Here we have the two treaties of government by, Robert Fuller and that, John Locke, and a lot of these people were engaged in press. This is Thomas Paine, another one of our founders, Common Sense. And here's the letters from Pennsylvania. This too was articles in newspapers. And so there was a lot of these founders that were avid printers. Benjamin Franklin was a major printer, and that's kind of what he was really, really engaged in. This is actually a reprinting of his almanac that he put out every year. So just to show you that what our founders were thinking, and many of them were engaged in the press, so they really understood how important it was. And then we move on from the free speech and free press and the freedom of religion. These are all freedoms. Freedoms can be curtailed, but like we discussed yesterday with the Second Amendment, that's an absolute right. And rights cannot be curtailed. And then we move on, or the right of the people to peacefully assemble. And that's where I'm getting at here. So freedoms can be curtailed for some reason temporarily. Okay, rights cannot. So you have the right of the people to peacefully assemble. And the reason for peacefully assembling is to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So if you aren't happy with something that's going on, you want some change, you can gather together, you can protest, you can do whatever you think is necessary to convince your fellow citizens. So a lot of times you'll have some kind of rally. A lot of times it'll be a political rally of some sort. And you're there for redress of grievances. But like it says, it's the right to peacefully assemble. So you cannot use it as a way to engage in riot or some kind of takeover of something. You can't really do that. It becomes an issue for the safety of everyone around you if you start trying to burn buildings down or something. But you have the right to peacefully assemble. So you have the freedom of press, the freedom of speech. You have the freedom to practice any religion the way you choose to see fit. I suppose you could even make up your own religion if you wanted to practice of it. And then you have a right to petition the government. I've got some questions here. I'll get to them. Cassandra says, what does freedom mean to you personally? It means I'm allowed to do it. So liberty is kind of a freedom from an outside source like another government. So when we got our liberty from England, when we ended the war, that's kind of liberty. Freedom is kind of a personal thing. So they're personal things that you have a right to do. And I think that's the real difference between the two. But yes, they definitely go hand in hand. Freedoms are important. There's lots of, just freedom of movement and things. But the Bill of Rights gives us a lot of things to look at. Like you have the rights of the accused and all those kinds of things, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Amendments. So you have all those rights in case something happens and you're wrongfully accused of something, so that you have a fair trial. So you have those rights. The freedoms are important because it gets the right to how do we want to live. No one can go and shut our churches down, for instance. They don't have a right to do that. And no one has a right to arrest you for speaking on something. Now, I recall in foreign countries, protests against wars come out and they go through and they arrest the protesters or shoot them in some cases. In Tiananmen Square, they brought tanks in there. The whole purpose here is so that we can live as free as possible. Eleanor, how do you develop such passion for the topics you're discussing? Well, when I first started to read the Constitution itself, I was really intrigued by what it actually said, because it wasn't what I was told it said. And I started getting books like Common Sense and Rights of Man and just on liberty, different collections of original texts from the period. And I actually had to teach myself how to read it, because like F's looked like S's, and there were other things in the actual print. But I was really fascinated listening to our founders in real time, talking about what was going on. And I guess that's what really did it for me, is really understanding what they mean. These aren't just men. They're men that gave up an awful lot for all of us so that we could live in a freer society. Chad, you're one brilliant man. Oh my gosh, thank you very much, Mr. Rucker. I'm glad I found your sessions. They've been very perceptive. I greatly appreciate that. I have a YouTube group, a YouTube channel, and you can find me there if you search Russell Rucker, or Constitutional Talks is how I actually use there, and I go through a lot of these things there. So a lot of what you've heard me say, well, probably half of it I got video up on. And I drop a video every week because I want to make people understand better. And I would really love if you'd come over and subscribe to that. It's trying to get the numbers up isn't the easiest thing. And I really appreciate anybody that would be really interested. And in that vein, I also have a friends group, Friends of Textualism and Originalism, on Facebook, in which we discuss a lot of these issues. And there's a lot of differences, and a lot of people have different material that makes the discussions really interesting. Robert, glad to see you again, Robert. Russell, you are a true patriot. Wow. Just the compliments keep coming today. Thank you so much. Your unwavering dedication to this country is evident in your actions and live sessions every day. Well, I really appreciate that, Robert. And I really try. I try to prepare so that I have things to discuss real well. And my books are important. They aren't partisan. I'm not a partisan. I look for where the language is. See, a lot of the problem with people that study the Constitution or tell us what the Constitution says is they come to the Constitution with a preconceived idea of what it is without looking at it. And then they search for it in the document, and sometimes it's just not there. So they're trying to make a leap of faith into what's there, and just doesn't work so well. The way to look at our Constitution is to read it and let it lead you to what the true meaning. And I know it requires historical knowledge in a lot of cases. It's hard to research what they were actually arguing about on a specific amendment or what they were doing, but there are records, and so that's an important thing. And I thank you for your kind words. John, I love you're so enthusiastic and profound when you're talking about your book. Well, thank you. I mean, I tried to put everything I could think of in this book. You know, I started out with the holidays, and I discussed Hamilton, Jefferson, and Paine, and the Federalist Papers, the anti-Federalist Papers that a lot of people want to ignore. And I discuss some of them in here. But, you know, that's the thing about the Federalist Papers. A lot of people, when you're reading just the Federalist Papers, you're getting one side. You're getting the Federalists. If you look at the anti-Federalist Papers with the Federalist Papers, then you're getting, you know, kind of the Jeffersonian, a Republican angle of it. So it fills it in a little better. So it's kind of interesting. But this is my period of study. This is what I've been most just intrigued by, and that's why I've spent 40 plus years studying it, every different aspect I could come up with. So it is kind of a thing. Now, the first book, Textualism, that actually goes through the Constitution paragraph by paragraph, and then there's a bio of the founders at the end that actually signed the document. So we started with 55 people in the Constitutional Convention. A couple went home because they were sick. One was a doctor and got called home because his brother was ill. Some left because they weren't happy that we were redoing the Constitution when the original goal was just to submit amendments to the Articles of Confederation. So all that does kind of matter, so just to get an idea. Paula, what do you think is the biggest issue affecting the world today? Do you think we will find a solution to it? Wow. Well, probably the biggest problem we have right now is all the wars going on. And I'm not sure if we'll ever find a solution to that. And then we have the problem with debt and monetary issues around the world, and just the starvation that people go through. You know, some countries are pretty poor. I'm lucky that I live in one of probably the richest country on the planet. But a lot of countries don't have the resources that are capable for everyone. And that's a big problem. And I don't know how we'll ever find a solution. Rosemary, do you believe in the principle that all men are created equal? Yes. I believe that all men are created equal, with kind of exceptions. I mean, we're all different. So you do have people that are born with defects and malprons, but basically, yes, all men are created equal. You can't tell me that any of the races, for instance, the whites, the blacks, the Orientals, Hispanics, any group you want to pick, is any more intelligent than any other group, and that includes the sexes too. Men are not smarter than women, or vice versa. And I do agree that we're all created equal, but what we do in life really changes that. Some of us just go to work in common jobs. Others get educated. You know, studying things, education does not end at the end of your education. You're studying throughout life on a lot of whatever you choose to study. What's really important about education is the primary education, learning how to read and write and learning mathematics. Once you have that, once you know how to read and write, you can go to a library, you can study pretty much anything you want. And you know, that's what really matters. And as we work together in a society to improve things, you know, I'm thinking now of Benjamin Franklin and his Quanto organization that he established, where he got just regular business owners together, and they were working for the public good. Like, they got lights on, they got they got a night watch going, which was our first police department. They got a fire department established. You know, and some of the inventions he did, like the lightning rod, are still used basically the way they were today. And he didn't even have it patented because he thought it was a gift to his fellow man. And these things, as we work together in mankind as a group, with everybody working on different things, as we all have different, you know, goals in life and different career paths, we move forward with a lot of different things. I mean, if we had to live the way we did 400 or 500 years ago, I don't think any of us would want to do it. But the advancements have been incredible. All men are created equal. There's no doubt. It doesn't mean that we all wind up with equal goods and equal wealth. And that's really what's important. Tomorrow, we're going to I'm going to go through the main document tomorrow. And we're going to, did I miss a couple? Okay. Well, we're going to get into the main document a little bit. And we're going to try to wrap up the 2-week period. I didn't realize I had a couple more questions, so I'll get to them. Leonard, how long did it take you to be well-versed about this topic? Did it ever cross your mind that the effort you're putting in it will be wasted? Well, I've had people tell me that the effort I put into it, that nobody cares about the Constitution, they said. I had a guy tell me that. Well, I understand that a lot of people just are too busy with their lives. But the rights that we have, if we lose them, would cause irreparable damage to the way we live. So I really think it's very important. And maybe I'm wasting my time, but I hope I'm not. I'm working very hard trying to make people understand exactly where we're at. Thank you very much for your question. Maya, with the accessibility of the internet, do you think there should be an imposed limit on how much people can voice out their opinion online, given there's always a matter of anonymity in this space? No, because if you limit it, then you have fewer people get access to their speech rights. And we need to allow everyone to have access to the internet to talk and discuss whatever they want. The internet is not a limited realm. So one guy can say something here, another guy can say something there. And I mean, it's not like you're going to run out of space. So I don't want to limit the amount of activity people can have. If anything, we should increase that. And I want to thank you for your time today. And as promised, I'm going to ring our Liberty Bell for you. And that's made to the exact specifications of the original. Well, I hope to see you tomorrow. And I'll see you then. Have a good day. Bye.